Hey there, and thanks for tuning into my latest art challenge video. Now, in the previous video, I set myself the challenge of creating something cute. Now, the challenge was open for other people to enter, such as patrons and also yourselves viewing on YouTube. Now, I just guessed that everybody's very busy and so forth, and I don't think I actually received anything. So, if you did send something, do leave me a comment below and we'll find out where it got to, but don't worry too much. At the end of the day, this is all about setting myself a challenge, and obviously I'm very happy to give you some feedback, but it's not going to stop me doing these challenges if, say for example, I don't receive something. So let's crack straight on. So the theme for this video was cute. Now, some of you may be aware, particularly if you watched my most recent video before this one, that I have started at last on my new manga. That is a comic, or the Japanese word for comic, essentially, called Future Saviours. And I have devised a whole story, a plot, a good number of the characters and so forth. And these are our two main characters, Saki-san, and Hisao-san. So Saki is 24 years old, Hisao is 37 years old. So we're going to concentrate on Saki today, and I'm not going to go into the characters in any great detail. If you want to find out a bit more about them, I did actually talk about it in the video about how my artwork has been shaped by living here in Iwate Prefecture here in Japan, with the events of the Higashi Nihon Daishinsai, which occurred 10 years ago, which was the Great East Japan earthquake of 2011. So these are our two main characters. So I've been working on quite a lot of artwork featuring both of these. These are all sort of promo pieces of artwork, again, both of them together, but also some individual images of Saki. Like I say, she's a young adult in most of these pictures, but the manga is going to have a great deal of history behind it as well. It's not just going to be something about the present day or the characters in their present day form, shall we say. So I felt that that gave me a bit of an idea for what to do for this challenge. So moving away from young adult form Saki, I wanted to look at creating something to do with her younger self, which is going to be quite prominent in the manga. Now, I devised this just around the Christmas/New Year period, and so to take her years back, shall we say, I figured out that essentially that she would have slightly more messier hair as a 5-year-old or as a child. The cheek would be more exaggerated, a bit more pudgy. She would have a little smile. I mean, older Saki will have many different expressions. She won't have this slight sort of pensive, almost scowl that she has. It's not really a scowl, it's more that she's just a very reflective individual and so forth, and she's usually lost in her thoughts. But essentially, she'll have a little smile mostly when she features her child form, around her chin, and larger, more circular eyes. Not quite so canted would be the word I'd use. This is what we'd call a cant eye, where it's just slightly like the eye is not at a sort of like a straight angle, and of course they're a bit more rounder. So that was something I'd already devised, and so I did this little sketch about 3 weeks ago now, where I drew younger Saki sat on a skateboard and made some notes about this pose, which I was quite happy with, but she still looks a little bit older for her age. She was just a little bit too tall. I did some strange things with the knees here. I knew full well that the knees were just knocking together, but when it came to actually drawing it, for some reason I got the knees overlapping, and that just doesn't work at all. So what we're going to do in today's video, fitting on the theme of cute, because I think younger Saki is quite cute, I'm going to show you the techniques that I use to draw anatomy, and also some of the equipment that I use, as well as also taking you through how I inked the very first panel for the manga, Future Saviours. So I think that fits the theme of cute. This one's going to be a little bit longer than the previous video because I'm going to show you techniques. I'm not going to explain every single technique that I used because I want to spread things out and not make this video too long, albeit it will be longer than even I expected. But hopefully you're going to pick up some good advice in this video, and so let's crack on. Okay, as quick as that. So what we need to do is just slightly correct a few bits just about her anatomy, because she's just slightly twisted as well. I'm not going to nitpick everything effectively, but it just gives you a bit of an idea of the kind of things that perhaps I notice about what I'm doing. Yeah, that can only be a good thing. So this is, like I say, it's a draft. So I'm not too fussed about the fact that around here I've slightly messed up the hair and so forth, because I can correct all that with the final inking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this exceedingly short wing pencil. I really do need to get some proper ends that allows me to use up these pencils, but I do have a new one if necessary. And I'm just going to draw in her sort of main sort of torso, as it were. And that's just a very simple sort of slightly oval shape, something like this. There we go, nothing too precise. Now what I've got to do is I've got to slightly straighten up her pose. So now the centre point of her face is here. So roughly speaking, if she's actually turning in that direction, we want this here roughly to be the centre point. This will be the midpoint torso, and we'll just draw in these guides here. Okay. Okay, and then we can just pencil in the shoulders. I'm not sure what this, the shoulder, end of shoulder bit, the bit at the end of the sort of clavicle there. So we can do that. In fact, we'll just slightly emphasise this a little bit more, because obviously perspective would dictate that this one's going to have a bit of foreshortening on it. So, okay, so that's the main torso. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back to using the red pencil, and this is just going to be the start of the waist area. Okay, so just circling there. Okay, and then the midpoint is right here, and we're going to continue the centre point of the body there. And then what we need to do is draw essentially the buttocks. And because she's obviously a girl, she's not fully grown up yet, her hips are still quite narrow. So again, I'm just going to extend the centre point here. Okay, and I might just add a little sense of depth there. So okay, and then what we need to do is draw in the hips essentially. Just connect those there, and then the top of the leg coming up there. Now, okay, so that's this leg. Oops, this leg. Okay, and then the legs are going to come back down out like this. Okay, down to the feet. Okay, and then this will be the knee. So we want them actually to touch, like so. Okay, so then I'm just going to rough in how the legs are going to. So this will be the back of the leg, of a lot of which we won't actually be able to see. Okay, that'll be the back of the buttocks. Okay, and likewise with this leg. Okay, and then here we'll just draw a little ankle. Okay, so these arms, the top of the arm, okay, has to come down pretty much to the waist, and the waist is where we can't barely see it, but it's just above that centre line of that circle. So I'm going to draw just two draft lines down here, then the forearms, and drop down to the hands here. Okay, and likewise on this side. So you can see this is all pretty rough stuff. There's no real sort of amazing precision about this, apart from just a bit of experience, perhaps, that drawing it, I suppose, more than anything. That's it. New improved sucky post. So I'm just going to repeat the process with the ink. So let's just start up here. Usually if I wasn't recording this, I'd be rotating this paper even for a draft inking, just because you can get smoother curves if you work with your wrist's natural arc, which is this, but that might be quite disorientating to watch, so I will just do this without doing so, basically. Okay, so that's the pose corrected. I'm pretty happy with that. There's a few little bits that are just a little bit off that I'm going to sort out properly with the actual inking, like this hand is not actually in the right place at all. It's just a little bit too low. It should just come up a fraction to be wrapped around the edge of the skateboard deck. Otherwise, Saki herself is, that's fine. She's now got her knees knocking together. Her eyes are a little bit larger up here. And yeah, so what I can now do is I can take this and create essentially just an ink version of it using the tracing table. So I'm just going to fold paper over like so, make use of paper properly. In fact, you can see that's exactly what I did here. And then when I turn this on, we can see the outline. How cool is that? So I'm now going to trace this and we'll go from there. Okay, so that's the rough idea of my background. As I said, it wasn't going to be too detailed, but I guess this is what not too detailed means to me. A lot of the backgrounds are going to be even simpler than this one. The main detail is actually just going to be in the swing, this chicken wire fencing, if that's the right phrase. But yeah, this is just a very rough drawing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to be able to then just ink this up onto a separate piece of paper, and I can lay that underneath here. But that gives a bit of an idea. It's quite an important scene, environment setting scene, this, I guess. So I suppose it does need a little bit of detail, but I don't want to overly major it, shall we say. So otherwise it will just distract from, obviously, Saki here. So yeah, so let's now put that onto another piece of paper as ink. Okay, so as is always the way with these things, that obviously they end up becoming quite involved. So from completing the sketch of Saki, which I can actually trace, I created the basic sketch of the landscape that I want to sit behind her. So that was completed. And then from the pencil sketch, I basically worked up the complete background, which is this here. Now this is just a draft, so I'm not too bothered about the fact that it's got lots of marks and so forth on it, because I'll be able to trace this onto manga paper. But the idea is that Saki is going to be sat in front, which is why there's this gap in the middle there, which I don't really need to fill in at this stage. So overall, very pleased with how that turned out. As you can see, even for what is a relatively simple scene, as it were, there is a lot of detail in there. As I say, not every single panel in the manga is going to be this detailed. A lot of them are actually just going to be sort of, pictures of people and stuff, and abstract backgrounds at very most. So, but the start of the manga actually does have a lot of detail, a lot of scene setting to do. So that's why, in this case, it was worth putting that little bit of extra effort in. There are a couple of little drawing errors, like I got the perspective a little bit wrong on this roof here, but this outside line is what I wanted. So my next step is to actually place this onto manga paper as a complete image. So there it is, I finished inking the character as Saki, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm just going to slightly tweak this one here. There we go. So the next thing is to clip the background to it and draw the backgrounds behind this, which, as I say, I've already drafted. So that's the next step. Oh, okay, so far so good. I've just got to put in the wire fencing, the houses in the background, and a few other details, and then this is almost done. The only real tip that I can give you for this is just work very methodically. Get your main lines in, so I got these horizontal lines for the fencing first, because then I knew that that was the bit where certain uprights, such as these telegraph poles and the swing and so forth here, the telegraph poles go behind the this fence here, but the swing sits in front. So it was important that I got this line in uninterrupted, except for obviously where Saki is sitting and where the background was, as it were, but break it up where obviously foreground elements such as obviously Saki and the swing are obviously in situ. So you just got to work very methodically. Don't dot about doing, like, I'll do a bit of the swing and then I'll do a bit of telegraph pole. Do bits at a time. So like I completed the fence in terms of its structure, not the actual wire mesh, in one sitting. Then I moved on to the telegraph poles, and I put in some lines for these brick walls that are going to be behind all these breeze block walls, and then put a bit of foliage in there, and then I've worked on the swing. So I've tried to be very methodical about it. So my next task is actually to put the houses in and so forth. And I'd imagine that my last task is probably going to be putting this wire fencing in, which is going to be an absolute pain of a job, because obviously it's quite a regimental pattern, and obviously it's all entirely hand drawn, but art challenge videos were meant to be fairly simple things for me to put out, but I guess, like anybody, I'm learning all the time about the effort involved to get to the results that I see in my mind's eye. And I have to say, the months that I've been progressively working towards improving my hand-drawn art skills with drawing manga and so forth has been eye-opening in many respects, because I am realising that actually sometimes what you think will be something that will take you 2 hours is actually probably going to take you double that, if not a bit more, particularly as I'm only really just beginning with this. So let's sum up. Let's try and think of some of the key points that I feel that I have learned that I would like to pass on to you in this video. I probably mentioned them in the production of this video, or what you've seen already, but my number one tip would be definitely work methodically. I have in the past worked on similar frames like this with a reasonably detailed background, and ended up making a mistake where something goes in front of an object that is, it's not meant to go in front of, or vice versa, something goes behind when it's actually meant to be in front. And I think part of the reason for that is I do have a habit of dotting about a bit sometimes when I work, where I go, it's a bit like a moth being drawn to the light. I think, oh, I'll do this bit, and I think, oh, I'll do this bit, and then what happens is, because I'm not concentrated on that, a singular part of the image, say for example the houses or the telegraph poles and associated paraphernalia and so forth, I end up making mistakes. So keeping that concentrated effort on specific elements of the image has really helped. Take your damn time with things. I have tried working too fast doing things. I think it's just my nature to try and approach life at 1,000 miles an hour, and it often trips me up. And just slow down when working on these things. That goes back to working methodically. Don't rush. Take a break every now and then. Don't just sit there for 2-3 hours at a time, just thinking, if I just push on a little bit, I will get this done a little bit quicker. It's not worth it. That's where mistakes creep in. At least it does in my case. So do take a break every now and then. Like, have yourself, and I'm going to very tentatively hold this over the drawing, have yourself a coffee or a hot chocolate or whatever beverage you prefer. So definitely make sure you just take your time. And the second element which I wanted to tag on to that taking your time element is, and it again works with working methodically, is don't be shy to really examine the markings on your ruler and make use of those millimeters, because that will be when you get your accuracy in. And that was really a step change for me, getting this wire fence behind looking pretty darn good, I think, even if I do say so myself. Things I'd like to improve upon. I'm overall very pleased with this image. I don't personally think there is too much that I could say that if only I had done this, this would be better. There are things where, physically, I had my fingers slightly in the way whilst I was drawing these curved telegraph lines. I was very, craning over, looking at where I was drawing this line, because I was very wary of not, making the ink smudge as I took the ruler away as well. And unfortunately, my fingers were just slightly hanging over, and it caused a little bump just here. But I'm not going to sweat that. This is the kind of thing that once I put a little bit of a sky in with the shading, it's going to be somewhat hidden. So, and I think overall for my first real concerted effort at producing these frames, these panels and so forth, I'm quite happy. Other things that maybe not so much in myself to improve upon, and I'm not saying that there aren't things in this image that can be improved upon by saying this, but I desperately need to get myself a parallel drawing board. You may have seen at one point I had this ruler clipped to a specific mark on the manga paper, and down the sides are these centimetre markings with millimetres as well. I clipped the ruler onto the paper, which basically meant that this was then square with the page. And obviously I can check that with a set square or a triangle, and I can basically put that there and I can see, yes, that's as good as square. And then from that, I was using my angled ruler, which we saw just a moment ago, and this was for drawing this wire fence again. Got it set to 45 degrees, and then I was able to move this ruler along parallel, and that really helped. But if I had a parallel drawing board, I would just literally have drag down the horizontal ruler on the parallel drawing board, set this ruler against it, locked that in position, and I've been good to go, and it would have saved a lot of, you know, slightly difficult moments when drawing. So I am going to invest in a parallel drawing board, if not with this month's Patreon income, then with next month's. Yeah, so there are things that I could say that I need to improve upon anatomy-wise. I need to get a little bit more consistent with my hands. Hands haunt the hell out of me. I think we can see that there's just a little bit of a size difference still with these hands. But it's one of those things that I'm hoping I will rapidly improve, and it's not going to affect things too much. And in fact, I do try to practice drawing hands for at least now every day at the moment, different poses, and they are rapidly improving as a result of that. But they still end up being one of the most difficult parts of anatomy to draw. But yes, that would be my thing that I would say is my, as we say in Japan, my Ganbatte point, the thing that I'm going to try my best on, shall we say. But otherwise, yokata ne, it's good. I'm happy. So I will be drawing two, obviously, other frames at the top here. I've already storyboarded these. Not going to give away what they are because I do not want to spoil the story. In fact, there is actually only one person in the entire world that kind of knows what's going to happen with this manga. You know who you are. Yeah, that's about it, really. I hope you enjoyed this video. Yeah, just double checking I actually pushed record. Phew! And yeah, I hope that was enjoyable. Don't worry if I didn't recount every single stage of the drawing process, you know, every single thing I did, because I'm going to be doing lots of these kinds of videos where I'm going to pull out a different aspect of drawing advice and so forth in those. So this is just general advice that will be helpful for any drawing. So stay tuned. I hope you enjoyed it, and I guess that all there is for me to say is see you soon. Peace. So it's come to that part of the video where I mention that I'm on Patreon. From as little as $2 a month, you can get early access to content, exclusive artwork through the post, your name mentioned on videos, as well as tips that I don't publish to the public. You can find a link in the video description below. Your subscription to my channel will also help me ensure that I can bring the latest content here from Japan.